shadows of betrayal. Alina Thompson had always prided herself on being the pillar of her family. At 65, with silver hair neatly pinned back and a wardrobe of practical blouses and skirts, she embodied the quiet strength of a woman who had weathered life's storms. Her husband, George, had passed away 15 years ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving her to raise their only son, Daniel, alone. Daniel had been her world, a bright, ambitious boy who grew into a charming man with a knack for business. Or so she thought. It started small. Daniel would call her late at night, his voice laced with urgency. "Mom, I need a little help, just a loan to get through this rough patch. I'll pay you back next month." Alina, ever the doting mother, would transfer the money from her modest savings, accumulated from years of teaching elementary school. 5,000 here, 10,000 there. Promises of repayment came and went like seasons, but the money never returned. As the years passed, Daniel's requests grew bolder. He married a woman named Lisa, a flashy socialite with expensive tastes, and their lifestyle spiraled into extravagance. Alina began noticing the red flags. Luxury cars parked in their driveway, exotic vacations posted on social media, all while Daniel claimed his investment firm was just hitting a temporary snag. One evening, over a tense dinner at her cozy bungalow in Seattle, Daniel dropped the bomb. "Mom, I need $250,000. It's for Lisa's medical bills, complications from her surgery. If I don't pay, we'll lose everything." His eyes, so like his father's, pleaded with her. Alina hesitated for the first time. George had been controlling too, always dictating how she spent her time and money, belittling her dreams of traveling or pursuing art. Daniel had inherited that manipulative streak, twisting her love into compliance. That night, alone in her bedroom, surrounded by her watercolor paintings and the faint scent of lavender from her garden, Alina made a decision. She packed a single suitcase, withdrew what remained of her savings in cash, and boarded a flight to San Diego. No note, no goodbye. She vanished into the night, leaving behind the rainy streets of Seattle for the sunny shores of California. In San Diego, Alina reinvented herself. She rented a small cottage near the beach, with whitewashed walls and a porch overlooking the ocean. She took up pottery, selling her handmade vases and bowls at local artisan markets. For the first time, she joined a book club, made friends with neighbors, and even started volunteering at a community center, teaching art classes to retirees. Life felt lighter, freer. She changed her last name to Hayes, a nod to her maiden name, and dyed her hair a soft auburn to blend in. Months turned into a year. Daniel's frantic calls and messages flooded her old phone, which she had left behind. Through mutual acquaintances, she learned he was furious, accusing her of abandonment. But Alina felt no guilt, only liberation. Then, one crisp autumn morning, as she sipped coffee on her porch, a knock echoed through the cottage. Standing there was her daughter-in-law's sister, Carla, a sharp-witted lawyer from Portland who had always been kind to Alina. "Alina, thank God I found you. Daniel's in trouble, big trouble." Carla's eyes were red-rimmed, her usual composure cracked. Over tea in the sunlit kitchen, Carla spilled the truth. Daniel's investment firm was an elaborate Ponzi scheme. He defrauded clients out of millions, including family, friends, and even Carla's own parents. The FBI was closing in, and Daniel had been using Alina's name on forged documents to launder money. "He told everyone you left because of a mental breakdown," Carla said bitterly. "But I know better. He's been searching for you, Alina, not out of love, out of desperation. He thinks you have evidence that could bury him." Alina's hands trembled around her teacup. That night, she dreamed of George, his stern face morphing into Daniel's, both whispering accusations. The next day, she contacted the authorities anonymously, providing bank statements and emails that detailed Daniel's manipulations. It felt like betrayal, but also justice. The arrest made headlines. Seattle businessman charged in multi-million fraud scheme. Daniel was taken into custody, his assets frozen. Lisa filed for divorce immediately, claiming ignorance. Alina watched from afar, her heart a mix of sorrow and relief, but peace was short-lived. A week after the arrest, Alina received a chilling voicemail on her new phone. How had he gotten the number? Daniel's voice, cold and calculated. "Mom, you think you can hide? I know where you are. San Diego suits you, doesn't it? But if you testify, you'll regret it. I have friends who owe me favors." The message ended with a laugh that sent shivers down her spine. Terrified, Alina called the police. Detective Laura Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a reputation for cracking tough cases, took her statement. Mrs. Hayes, Thompson, we take threats seriously, especially from someone like your son. He's connected to some shady figures, loan sharks, underground investors. We'll look into it. Carla arrived in San Diego the next day, insisting on staying with Alina. I'm not letting you face this alone. Together, they fortified the cottage. New locks, motion sensor lights, even a small panic button linked to the police. But the fear lingered. Alina spotted unfamiliar cars idling nearby, shadows lurking at the market. One night, a brick shattered her window, a note attached. Stay silent or pay the price. Detective Ramirez called with updates. We've traced the threats. Daniel's been making calls from jail using smuggled phones. He's offered your location to his creditors as collateral, essentially putting a bounty on you to keep you quiet. Alina's stomach churned. Her son, her flesh and blood, was willing to sacrifice her for his freedom. Considering the escalating danger, Ramirez offered temporary protection. We strongly suggest relocating again. These associates are dangerous, organized crime ties. An officer escorted Alina home that evening. Carla was waiting, arms open for a hug. I found a secure condo in Phoenix, gated 24/7 security. Alina gazed at her pottery wheel in the corner, the vibrant glazes she mixed herself, the ocean view that inspired her daily sketches. No, she said firmly, surprising even Carla. I'm done running. Daniel's controlled me for too long. This is my life now, my home, my art, my freedom. I won't let him take it. Carla's eyes widened with worry but also respect. Alina, these people mean business. I know, Alina replied, but I'll fight smart. Precautions, yes. Surrender, never. In the days that followed, they installed a top-tier security system. Cameras covering every angle, alarms wired to the police station, reinforced doors. Plainclothes officers patrolled the neighborhood, one always stationed nearby. Alina's granddaughter, Mia, Lisa's daughter from a previous marriage, called in a panic after hearing the news. Grandma, come stay with us in Portland. Please. I'm safe, sweetheart, Alina assured her, forcing a light tone. And at my age, I'm finally living for me. My art markets, my yoga group, my beach walks. I even joined a writing class. Imagine that, me penning stories. She laughed, though her voice wavered. No more catering to selfish men. A summons arrived soon after. Alina was to testify at Daniel's trial in 2 weeks. Carla reviewed it with her. This will be tough, facing him in court. Alina stared at the waves crashing outside. I'm ready. It's time to end this. The Seattle courthouse loomed like a gray monolith under drizzling skis. Alina returned to the city for the first time since fleeing, the familiar streets now alien and oppressive. Carla drove, glancing over. Nervous, strangely calm, Alina admitted, like turning the final page of a bad book. Inside the courtroom, they sat front row. The prosecutor, a stern man named Mr. Vaughn, approached. Your testimony is key, Mrs. Thompson. Daniel's claiming he was coerced by bigger players. Alina nodded. He always played the victim card well. The doors opened, and Daniel entered, shackled and gaunt, his once polished demeanor shattered. Their eyes locked, his desperate, hers resolute. The trial commenced. Experts dissected the fraud, revealing layers of deceit. When Alina was called, she approached the stand steadily. After swearing in, Vaughn began. Describe your relationship with the defendant. Looking straight at Daniel, she said, I raised him after George died. We seemed normal, but it was a facade. George was controlling. Daniel learned it young. Detail the financial manipulation, Vaughn prompted. Alina recounted it all. The loans, the guilting, the emotional blackmail. The last demand was $250,000 for Lisa's bills. I realized it was endless. His tone, don't let me down, Mom, it was pure contempt. I was just a wallet to him. Daniel's lawyer, a slick attorney named Hargrove, cross-examined. Were you a good mother, Mrs. Thompson? The question stung, but Alina met his gaze. I thought so, giving everything. Now I know good parenting includes boundaries. I didn't abandon him, I stopped enabling destruction. And these threats, convenient timing, no, Hargrove sneered. The voicemails exist, Alina said coolly. Offering my life to criminals isn't convenient, it's heartbreaking. Dismissed, she rejoined Carla, legs shaky but spirit unbroken. More witnesses followed, defrauded clients, including Mia's testimony about Daniel's lies to the family. Daniel fidgeted, glaring. At day's end, as he was let out, his eyes burned into Alina's, pure venom. That night in their hotel, sleep evaded her. Daniel's face echoed George's, rageful, plotting. Morning brought closing arguments. Vaughn's damning evidence versus Hargrove's pleas for leniency. In a cafe during recess, Alina spotted a man starring burly, tattooed, averting eyes too late. Carla, he's watching, Carla glanced. Probably press. But as they left, he followed. Back at court, Alina alerted security. The man vanished. The verdict, guilty on all counts. 15 years, parole after 5, plus restitution. Relief flooded Alina, tinged with grief. As Daniel was removed, he snarled, "This isn't finished, Mom, you'll pay." Outside, the same man lurked. Pointed out, he fled. "We're leaving for San Diego now," Alina told Carla. "Seattle's poison." Back home, routine beckoned, but protection waned post-conviction. One evening, returning from market with pottery sales cash, Alina eyed a tinted SUV near her cottage. Instinct screamed danger. She ducked into a bookstore and called Ramirez. Might be paranoia, but check it. Patrol arrived. 2 men bolted from the SUV but were caught. Ramirez called. "Armed thugs with your address. Daniel's hires via jail contacts. They confessed. Meant to intimidate you permanently." Carla urged, "My cabin in Big Sur, remote, safe." Packing, Alina paused. Hiding again? No, a bold plan formed. Next day, she met Ramirez. "Use me as bait, set a trap." Ramirez hesitated. "Risky. Living scared is worse," Alina insisted. With the captured men's cooperation leniency deals, they staged it. Alina alone at home, officers hidden. Daniel, via proxy, had hired a hitman, the third man. That night he struck, breaking in masked. But police swarmed. He surrendered, spilling all, Daniel's orders from prison, promising payment from hidden funds. Recordings sealed it. Daniel faced new charges, conspiracy to murder. Weeks later, with associates dismantled, Alina stood on her porch, ocean breeze soothing. Daniel got life without parole. She painted a new piece, a woman emerging from shadows into light. Carla visited often, Mia too. Alina taught classes, sold art, lived fully. No more running, only thriving. The betrayed mother had become unbreakable. Whispers of freedom. The fog clung to the streets of Portland like a shroud, muffling the distant hum of the city as evening descended. It was a damp Thursday in mid-fall, and I'd just lit a fire in the hearth of my quaint craftsman home when the phone vibrated insistently on the side table. At 69, I'd come to dread unexpected calls, especially from my son, Gregory. He only reached out when his world was unraveling, pulling me into the chaos like a lifeline he never reciprocated. Widowed for 7 years since my husband, Harold, succumbed to cancer, I'd carved out a serene existence. The house, a charming relic from the 1920s with creaky floors and a garden bursting with perennials, was mortgage-free thanks to Harold's frugal engineering career. He'd amassed our savings through meticulous investments, always preaching self-reliance. Gregory, however, mirrored my side of the family, restless, visionary, forever pursuing grandeur without the groundwork. I answered, my voice cautious. "Gregory." "Mom, it's me. Listen, I need to come over. Now." His tone was clipped, urgent, laced with that familiar undercurrent of entitlement. Before I could respond, he hung up. Half an hour later, his sleek electric sedan pulled up, headlights cutting through the mist. He burst through the door without knocking, his expensive suit rumpled, carrying a tablet under his arm. No hug, just a perfunctory nod as he marched to the living room, sinking into Harold's worn leather armchair. "Whiskey?" I asked, masking my unease with routine. "Make it a double," he muttered, tapping furiously on his tablet. As I poured from the decanter, I studied him. At 42, Gregory was married to Nadia, a social media influencer, with 3 young children I adored but rarely saw beyond video calls. They resided in a lavish loft in the Pearl District, all glass and minimalism, funded by Gregory's innovative ventures that always seemed one step from collapse. He took the glass without thanks, gulping half before sliding the tablet toward me. "Look at this." The screen displayed financial statements, urgent emails from lenders, and a glaring loan agreement highlighted. $280,000. My stomach dropped. It was virtually all I had left: Harold's pension, life insurance, and the funds from downsizing our old family farm after his passing. "Gregory, this is everything." He leaned in, his blue eyes, Harold's eyes, intense. "Nadia and I backed a green tech startup. Solar innovations, the future. But supply chains broke, investors pulled out. We owe these guys by week's end or it's bankruptcy. The loft, the kids' school, gone." I felt the room constrict. My arthritis treatments, the home maintenance. "Mom, come on," he cut in, his voice wheedling like when he was a boy begging for toys. "You're set here. House paid off, garden keeps you busy. What else? And Nadia's got campaigns lined up. We'll repay double once we rebound." The words echoed Harold's old dominance, where he'd dictate budgets and I'd comply, the supportive spouse. Gregory pressed on, clasping my wrist. "I'm your only son. Family first, right? Like when Dad was ill and you swore we'd stick together." Subtle coercion, wrapped in memory. I'd buylaid him out before $90,000 for a failed app launch, $60,000 for bridging their wedding costs. Returns, vague assurances. The burden crushed me. "I need to consider it," I murmured, withdrawing my hand. "No time," he barked, then softened with a grin. "These lenders, not the forgiving type, connected, default, and it gets ugly for everyone." Ugly, a veiled menace. He glanced at his watch. "Meeting calls, back tomorrow for the transfer. Don't fail me, Mom." A quick peck on the forehead, and he vanished into the fog, leaving the tablet and his empty glass. Solitude returned, amplified by the crackling fire. I stared at the figures, a long-buried resolve stirring. Harold had titled the house to Gregory for estate planning, he'd claimed, but it chained me. I dialed a forgotten number. "Beatrice, it's Miriam. I need your wisdom, urgently." Beatrice arrived swiftly, her practical vibe piercing the gloom. Childhood friends from nursing school, she'd become a savvy estate planner while I raised a family. At 68, she was widowed too, but fiercely autonomous, always chiding my submissiveness to Harold. She embraced me, her raincoat shedding droplets. "Miriam, you sound wrecked. Spill." I showed the tablet, her brow furrowed. $280,000, extortion. And this isn't new, he's drained you dry before. Tears welled. "He's my son, Beatrice, but he's changed, always demanding, never grateful." She placed it down decisively. "Blood doesn't equal ATM. Harold indulged him, now you're the target. You're not duty-bound to ruin yourself." Pausing, she eyed me. "Your move." The query jolted me. What did I desire, after years of yielding? "Secure my assets. Help me vanish before he returns." Beatrice beamed fiercely. "Finally, my cabin in Bend is vacant, mountain views, solitude. Bank tomorrow, but tonight, online lockdowns. I know offshore options, but basics first." We hunkered at my desktop. Beatrice navigated password resets, transfers to a solo IRA, rerouting pensions. By dawn, funds were safeguarded, beyond Gregory's reach. Fatigue mingled with exhilaration. Friday broke misty. Gregory texted, en route. Funds ready, Zoe, pulse racing, Beatrice brewed coffee. Our tops, pack essentials. I stuffed a suitcase. Garments, meds, visa, treasured snaps of Harold and Gregory Young. In a hidden compartment, my secret fund, $6,000 from knitting sales at fairs, unknown to Harold. Left the antiques Gregory coveted. En route to Beatrice's firm, she coordinated. Notary for power of attorney, appraiser for house contest if needed, security expert. Bank visit smooth, Beatrice's expertise quelling queries. Back home fleetingly, I penned a note on stationery, table centered. Gregory, enough given. Time for self-sufficiency. Wells empty. Seek not, I'm forging mine, Mom. We departed as his car neared. From Beatrice's truck afar, I saw him enter, exit raging, phone pressed. Mine vibrated, I muted. Beatrice's bend cabin was rustic bliss, log walls, deck overlooking pines. First eve, I perched outside, blanket-clad, stars emerging. Liberty's tang, sharp as pine. Week following, barrage intensified. Gregory's voicemails, Mom, where? Not amusing, need cash. Nadia, Miriam, grandkids suffer, reconsider. Cousin enlisted. Beatrice managed legals, Gregory alleging incapacity, but docs and loan logs fortified us. Safe here, Beatrice consoled over tea. Future, remote sales, smart invests, Hawaii, perhaps you loved beaches. I dip toes, senior knitting circle, animal rescue volunteer, photography hikes. At 69, my scarves sold online, meager but mine. Months blurred, Gregory's ire ebbed to intermittent messages, fury to feigned worry. One sunny summer morn, 8 months on, he appeared at the cabin, traced via family whispers. Haggard, sheen gone. Mom, why? He pleaded, eyes brimming. Loft foreclosed, Nadia left, crumbling. I held steady. Regret your hurt, Gregory, but enabling ceased, build anew. He departed, a spark of remorse in his exit. Beatrice squeezed my shoulder. Brave. Eventually, I acquired a lakeside bungalow in Ashland, amid theaters and trails. Knitted, photographed, heard sporadically from Gregory, cautious overtures like holiday wishes. Mending? Possibly. For now, free, inheritances whispers silenced by autonomy's roar. But the saga lingered. One crisp autumn day, a year post-escape, my phone rang, unknown caller. Yes. Ms. Carter, Harlan Voss, your son's counsel. Chest tightened. Gregory swapped attorneys often, chasing leniency miracles. What now? Gregory offers intel on major fraud rings for plea deal. Needs aid. Funds, for elite lawyers, $220,000. Spot on. Laughter escaped bitter. Mr. Voss, funds gone, wouldn't anyway. Tone iced. As mother, with him facing 15 years. As mother, I interjected, decades sufficed, consequences his. Pause, he foresaw, mentions signed docs implicating you. Gut twisted, recalled blind endorsements, Harold's era, Gregory's after. Blackmail adds charges, I'll face if must to end cycle. Hung up, quaking, dialed Beatrice. Bluff, she soothed. Coercion proven, patterns established. Sleepless night, inventorying signatures. Deeds, proxies, unread trusts. Dawn knock, Detective Harlan, coincidence noted, with partner. Ms. Carter, station please, update. En route, Gregory bribed guard for phone, sting op recorded. Station transcript, intended call to creditor offering my Bend address. Mom's stashed cash, can't pay, collect there. Chill bone deep, son endangering me. Protection offered, detective said. Relocate advised. Escorted home, Beatrice waited. Secure spots scouted. Surveyed cabin, tended wildflowers, handmade throws, mountain vista. No flight, this mine chosen. Concern, pride in her eyes. Dangerous folk. Precautions, yes. Installed. Cams, alarms, bolts, patrols upped, discreet stationed. Nadia called frantic. Miriam, stay here, safe. Fine, dear, I replied. Life built, fairs, friends, yoga. 69, uncovering self-sands demanding men. Week later, subpoena. Testify Gregory's trial fortnight hence. Beatrice reviewed. Ready confront. Vista gazing. Closure. Portland courthouse austere. City alien post-absence. Beatrice drove, tense. Nerves. Peaceful, ending chapter. Front row, prosecutor, a keen young woman, Alina, greeted. Testimony vital, he claims victimhood. His forte, I quipped. Gregory entered, shackled, diminished. Eyes met, his imploring mind steadfast. Oath taken, I testified. Demand details, threats, flight. Prior bailouts, $90K app, $60K wedding, house title trap. Defense cross. Willing signatures. Benefited. Duress, I rebutted. Trust abused. Nadia followed, weepy, portraying misled hubby. But proofs piled. Transfers, mails, bribe script. Intel, phony. Closing, prosecutor echoed me. Betrayal beyond fraud. Jury, guilty, fraud, bribery, extortion. 14 years restitution. As led away, Gregory whispered, Mom. I exited with Beatrice. Ashland return, life flourished. Expanded knitting to workshops, photographed for galleries. Nadia visited with kids, Bridges, Sands asks. Gregory's letters, regrets, pleas, responses sparse. Self-heal. At 71, lakeside walks, wind whispering freedom. Scars endure but forged resilience. In quiet, I craft with lake motifs, enduring liberty symbols. Whispers hush, supplanted by self-symphony. Shadows of inheritance. The rain pounded against the windows of my modest bungalow in Seattle, a relentless drumbeat that matched the pounding in my chest. It was a stormy Friday evening in late autumn, and I had just settled into my armchair with a book when the doorbell chimed. Sharp, urgent, like a demand rather than a request. I knew that ring. It belonged to my daughter, Alina. She only visited when the world was crashing down around her, or more precisely, when her latest scheme had imploded. At 72, I'd grown accustomed to these interruptions. Widowed for 8 years since my husband Marcus passed from a sudden heart attack, I'd learned to cherish my quiet life. The house was paid off, a cozy 2-bedroom nestled in a quiet suburb, filled with memories of better days. Marcus had been a steady man, an accountant who built our nest egg through careful planning. But Alina, she took after her mother's side, impulsive, ambitious, always chasing the next big thing. I set my book aside and shuffled to the door, peering through the peephole. There she stood, drenched despite her umbrella, clutching a sleek leather briefcase. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, and her designer coat screamed of the high life she pretended to lead. I opened the door, and she swept in without a word, tracking water across the hardwood floors I'd polished that morning. Mom, she said, her voice clipped as she shrugged off her coat and hung it on the rack like she still lived here. We need to talk. It's urgent. She headed straight for the living room, dropping into Marcus's old recliner, the one I never sat in. I followed, feeling the familiar knot in my stomach tighten. Tea, I offered, more out of habit than hospitality. She nodded absently, already pulling papers from her briefcase. As I busied myself in the kitchen, heating water and steeping chamomile, I glanced back at her. Alina was 45 now, married to Victor, a flashy real estate developer, with 2 teenagers I saw mostly in photos on social media. They lived in a sprawling McMansion downtown, but appearances were deceiving. I knew that all too well. When I returned with the steaming mugs, she barely looked up. Thanks, she muttered, sipping immediately and wincing at the heat. Then, without preamble, she slid a folder across the coffee table. Open it. I did, my hands steady despite the unease bubbling inside. Inside were spreadsheets, emails from creditors, and a promissory note circled in bold red ink. $250,000. My breath caught. It was nearly every penny from Marcus's life insurance, my pension savings, and the proceeds from selling our vacation cabin in the mountains after his death. Alina, what is this? She leaned forward, her green eyes, Marcus's eyes, locking onto mine. Victor and I invested in a startup, real estate tech, the next big thing, but the market tanked and our partners bylaid. We owe this to some investors. If we don't pay by Monday, it'll ruin us. The house, the cars, everything. I stared at the numbers, feeling the room spin. This is almost all I have left. My medical bills, the roof needs repairs. Mom, please, she interrupted, her tone softening to that pleading lilt she mastered as a child. You're retired. The house is yours free and clear. What do you need all that money for? Travel? You hate flying. And Victor's got deals in the pipeline. We'll pay you back with interest once things turn around. Her words stung, echoing the dismissals I'd heard from Marcus in our early years, when he'd control the finances and I'd nod along, the dutiful wife. But Alina wasn't done. She reached across the table, grasping my hand. I'm your only daughter. Family sticks together, right? Remember when Dad got sick and you said you'd do anything for us? The manipulation was subtle, wrapped in nostalgia. I'd loaned her money before $80,000 for Victor's surefire flip property that flopped, $40,000 for the kids' private school tuition she insisted on despite public options. Repayments? Promises, mostly. I felt the weight of it all pressing down. I need time to think, I said, pulling my hand away. There's no time, she snapped, then caught herself, forcing a smile. Mom, these investors aren't patient. They're connected. If we default, it could get messy for all of us. Messy, the word hung in the air like a threat. She checked her phone, frowning at a message. I have to run to a meeting, but I'll swing by tomorrow morning. Transfer it tonight, okay? Don't let me down. She stood, kissed my cheek airily, and was gone, leaving the folder and her half-empty mug behind. The door clicked shut and silence enveloped me. Rain lashed the windows harder now. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the papers. Then something shifted, a spark of defiance I'd buried long ago. Marcus had left the house in Alina's name for tax reasons, he'd said, but it felt like another chain. I picked up my phone and dialed a number from my contacts, one I hadn't used in years. Lydia, it's Clara. I need your advice and maybe more. Lydia arrived within the hour, her no-nonsense energy cutting through the storm like a beacon. We'd been neighbors back in the day, before she became a financial advisor and moved to the city center. Sharp-witted and independent, she'd always urged me to stand up to Marcus's controlling ways, but I'd waved her off. Now, at 70 herself, she hugged me tightly, her coat dripping on the floor. Clara, you look like hell. What's going on? I showed her the folder. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the documents. $250,000, that's highway robbery, and from what you've told me over the years, this isn't the first rodeo. I nodded, tears pricking my eyes for the first time. She's my daughter, Lydia, but it's like she's become a stranger, always taking, never giving back. Lydia set the papers down firmly. Family doesn't mean doormat. Marcus bobbied her, and now she's expecting the same from you, but you're not obligated to bankrupt yourself. She paused, studying me. What do you want to do? The question startled me. What did I want? For decades, I'd deferred to others. But now, I want to protect what's mine. Can you help me move the money somewhere safe? And maybe help me leave before she comes back? Lydia's face lit up with a fierce grin. Ah-ta, girl. I've got a guest room in my condo overlooking Puget Sound, empty and waiting. We'll hit the bank first thing tomorrow, but tonight, let's secure your accounts online. I know a guy who can set up an offshore trust if needed, but let's start simple. We spent the next few hours at my computer. Lydia guided me through changing passwords, initiating transfers to a new high-yield savings account in my name only, and even contacting my pension administrator to reroute payments. By midnight, the bulk of the funds were in motion, untouchable by Alina. Exhaustion hit, but so did a thrill I hadn't felt since my youth. The next morning, Saturday, dawned gray but calm. Alina texted, "On my way over, hope you handled it. Love you." My heart raced, but Lydia was already there, coffee brewing. "We've got 2 hours. Pack light, essentials only." I filled a duffel bag. Clothes, prescriptions, my passport, a few cherished photos of Marcus and Alina from happier times. In the bottom drawer of my nightstand, I found my rainy day stash, $5,000 in cash from selling baked goods at community markets over the years. Marcus never knew. It was my quiet act of independence. I left behind the family heirlooms, the china set Alina always eyed greedily. As we drove to Lydia's office downtown, she handled calls. A notary for emergency power of attorney, a realtor friend to quietly appraise the house, in case I decided to fight the title, and even a security consultant for peace of mind. At the bank, the teller raised an eyebrow at the large transfer confirmation, but with Lydia's professional demeanor, it went smoothly. Back at the house briefly, I wrote a note on a simple card, placing it on the kitchen table where Alina would see it first. "Alina, I've given enough. It's time you learn to stand on your own. The well is dry. Don't search for me. I'm finding my own path. Mom." We left just as her car pulled into the driveway. From Lydia's SUV down the block, I watched her enter, then emerge minutes later, phone to her ear, face twisted in fury. My phone buzzed with her calls, but I silenced it. Lydia's condo was a haven, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the restless sound. That first night, I sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, listening to the waves crash. Freedom tasted bittersweet, like salt in the air. Over the next week, the calls escalated. Voicemails from Alina. "Mom, where are you? This isn't funny. We need that money." Then Victor, "Clara, think about the grandkids. Don't do this to them." Even my brother-in-law roped in as a mediator. Lydia fielded the legal threats, Alina hinting at elder abuse claims, contesting my mental competency. But with the power of attorney and documented history of loans, Lydia insisted I keep records. We had leverage. "You're safe here," Lydia assured me over wine one evening. "But long-term, sell the house remotely, invest wisely. Maybe travel, see Europe like you always dreamed." I started small, joining a seniors book club, volunteering at a local shelter, even taking painting classes. At 72, I discovered a talent for watercolors, selling pieces at weekend markets. The money wasn't much, but it was mine. Months passed. Alina's fury simmered to sporadic texts, a mix of anger and faux concern. One crisp spring day, 6 months later, she showed up at Lydia's door, tracked via mutual friends, no doubt. I let her in, steeling myself. She looked haggard, the polish faded. "Mom, how could you?" she demanded, tears welling. "We lost the house. Victor left. It's all falling apart." I met her gaze evenly. "I'm sorry for your pain, Alina, but I couldn't keep enabling it. You have to build your own life now." She stormed out, but not before a flicker of something, regret, crossed her face. Lydia hugged me after. "Proud of you." In time, I bought a tiny cottage on Whidbey Island, surrounded by forests and sea. I gardened, painted, and occasionally heard from Alina tentative olive branches like birthday cards. Reconciliation, maybe someday. But for now, I was free, the shadows of inheritance lifted, replaced by the light of self-reliance. Shadows of inheritance. Alina Thompson had always been the quiet pillar of her family, the one who smoothed over edges and mended what was broken. At 67, she looked back on a life defined by others, first as Robert's devoted wife, then as Daniel's doting mother. Robert, a charismatic accountant with a sharp tongue and sharper control over their finances, had passed away 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack. Daniel, their only child, had inherited not just his father's business acumen, but also his manipulative streak. What started as helping Mom with the bills, after Robert's death had spiraled into something far darker, a web of financial entrapment that left Alina penniless and isolated. It began innocently enough. Daniel, in his mid-40s and running a small investment firm, offered to manage Alina's modest inheritance and pension. "You don't understand these things, Mom," he'd say with a patronizing smile. "Let me handle it so you can relax." But soon, checks bounced, credit cards maxed out, and mysterious loans appeared in her name. When she confronted him, Daniel turned the tables. "You're imagining things. It's your age catching up." Gaslighting, she later learned the term from a late-night internet search on her old laptop. Her daughter-in-law, Carla, tried to intervene once, but Daniel's rage drove a wedge there too. Carla and their 2 kids, Sophie and Ben, moved out after a particularly vicious argument, leaving Alina even more alone in the sprawling Victorian house in Seattle that now felt like a prison. The breaking point came on a rainy November evening in 2024. Alina discovered a stack of forged documents in Daniel's home office while visiting for what he called a family dinner. They showed transfers of her savings to offshore accounts, hundreds of thousands gone. Her heart pounded as she snapped photos with her phone, hands trembling. That night, she confided in her old friend, Detective Laura Hayes, whom she'd known since high school. Laura, now a seasoned investigator in the Financial Crimes Unit, listened with growing alarm. "This isn't just mismanagement, Ellie. This is embezzlement, fraud. We can build a case." The investigation unfolded in secrecy. Laura's team uncovered a trail of deceit. Daniel had been using Alina's identity to fund his failing business, even taking out life insurance policies on her with himself as beneficiary. The betrayal cut deep, her own son viewing her as a commodity. When the arrest warrant was issued, Daniel didn't see it coming. He was cuffed in his office, surrounded by stunned employees. The trial was a media circus in Seattle, with headlines screaming, "Son steals mother's fortune." Alina testified, her voice steady despite the tears. "I raised him to be better, but somewhere along the way, he learned to take instead of give." Daniel was convicted and sentenced to 8 years in prison. The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, cited the emotional abuse as aggravating factors. Alina reclaimed what was left of her assets, but the house had to be sold to cover legal fees. With the proceeds, she bought a cozy condo in Portland, Oregon, a fresh start in a city alive with art galleries and coffee shops, far from the gray drizzle of Seattle that mirrored her past moods. But freedom came with shadows. Months after the sentencing, strange things began happening. Anonymous letters arrived in her mailbox. "You think you've won? Blood is thicker than water." Her car tires were slashed in the parking garage. A brick shattered her living room window one night with a note tied to it. "Payback." Terrified, Alina called Laura. "It's Daniel," Laura confirmed after tracing the incidents. "He's pulling strings from inside. Inmates have networks, old clients, shady associates. He wants to remind you who's in control." The plan was risky but necessary. Alina would act normal, sticking to her routine of morning walks in the nearby park and evening classes at the community center where she was learning pottery. Undercover officers posed as neighbors and delivery personnel, watching her every move. For 5 tense days, she lived on edge, jumping at shadows, scrutinizing every face. On the 6th morning, while sipping coffee on her balcony overlooking the Willamette River, she spotted a figure loitering by the bike path below, a burly man in a hooded jacket, glancing up at her unit repeatedly. Their eyes locked for a moment, and a chill ran down her spine. She retreated inside, signaling the officer disguised as a maintenance worker fixing her sink. "That's him," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The man lingered for nearly an hour, then approached the building's entrance. The lobby security guard, another undercover cop, buzzed him in without resistance. Alina positioned herself in the armchair facing the door, her pulse thundering. The officer slipped into the coat closet, door cracked just enough to see. The knock came sharp and insistent. Alina rose, smoothed her blouse, and opened the door. The man was unremarkable, medium build, nondescript features, the kind who faded into crowds. "Mrs. Thompson," he asked, his voice gravelly, "I have a delivery from your son." Before he could step forward, 4 officers burst from hiding spots in the hallway and stairwell, tackling him to the ground. He struggled briefly, cursing under his breath, but surrendered when the cuffs clicked. Interrogation revealed the truth. Daniel had hired him through a prison contact, a former client down on his luck, for $7,000 to rough her up a bit. Not kill, but intimidate, smash furniture, shout threats, leave bruises that would linger. "Make her regret testifying," Daniel had instructed. The confession led to new charges: conspiracy to commit assault, witness tampering. Laura visited Alina that evening with the news. "This seals it." No early release for him, probably adds another 5 years. Emboldened, Alina decided to confront Daniel. 2 weeks later, she drove to the state penitentiary, a hulking gray fortress amid rolling hills. He looked gaunt behind the plexiglass, his once confident smirk replaced by hollow eyes. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he asked, surprise flickering across his face. "I've come to end this," she said calmly, meeting his gaze. "Your hired thug sang like a bird. More time for you, Daniel. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you I'm done. No more visits, no more money wired to your commissary. I'm living my life now, without you in it." He sneered, leaning forward. "Living? At your age? You're nothing without us, Mom. Dad always said you were weak." Alina's laugh was soft but genuine. "Your father was wrong, and so are you. I'm Alina now, not just Mom or Robert's wife. I'm taking painting classes, volunteering at the animal shelter. I even joined a book club. And guess what? I'm happy." Daniel pounded the glass, rage twisting his features. "This isn't over. I'll be out eventually." "Maybe," she replied, standing. "But by then I'll be unbreakable. Goodbye, Daniel." As she walked out into the crisp autumn air, a weight lifted from her shoulders. The leaves were turning gold and crimson, crunching underfoot like a promise of change. Carla was waiting in the parking lot, having reconnected after the trial. "How'd it feel?" she asked. Like breathing freely for the first time, Alina said, hugging her tightly. Sophie and Ben waved from the backseat, their faces lit with excitement for the weekend visit. A year flew by in Portland's vibrant rhythm. Alina's pottery hobby blossomed into a small online shop, selling handmade mugs and vases adorned with intricate designs inspired by the Pacific Northwest's landscapes. She taught workshops at the community center, mentoring a group of retirees, widows and divorcees like her, who found solace in shaping clay and sharing stories. Carla and the kids visited monthly. Sophie, now 10, loved helping glaze pots, while 7-year-old Ben collected river stones to incorporate into sculptures. Carla had found work as a graphic designer, her confidence blooming away from Daniel's shadow. News of Daniel trickled in via Laura, now a close confidant over weekly lunches. He'd been transferred to a higher security wing after the new charges, his appeals denied. Whispers from informants suggested he'd grown withdrawn, perhaps grappling with the consequences at last. One crisp Saturday in October 2025, Alina returned from a farmer's market laden with fresh apples and artisanal cheeses. A woman stood by her condo's entrance, elegant in a wool coat, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. She appeared to be in her late 50s, with kind eyes that held a hint of wariness. "Are you Alina Thompson?" she asked as Alina approached. "Yes, can I help you?" "I'm Vivian Reed. I was married to Robert before you." The name hit like a forgotten echo. Robert had dismissed his first marriage as a youthful mistake, claiming Vivian was unstable and greedy. Now, facing her, Alina saw the irony, the same lies he'd spun about her to others. "Come inside," Alina offered, leading her up to the sunny living room overlooking the river. Over chamomile tea and shortbread cookies, Vivian shared her story. "I read about Daniel's trial in the news. The financial manipulation, the control. It was like reliving my own nightmare with Robert. He drained our accounts, isolated me from friends, made me doubt my sanity. When I divorced him, he left me broke, then moved on to you." Alina nodded, the parallels striking. "He did the same to me, and Daniel, he learned it all from his father. The cycle repeated." Vivian sighed. "I tracked you down through a support network for survivors of economic abuse. Your story has inspired so many women in their 60s and 70s realizing it's not too late to fight back. You're a beacon, Alina." They talked until dusk fell, bonding over shared scars and triumphs. Vivian had rebuilt her life as a counselor, helping others escape similar traps. "Robert died without facing justice," she said, "but seeing Daniel held accountable, it's closure for us both." As Vivian left, promising to stay in touch, Alina stepped onto her balcony. The city lights twinkled below, the river a dark ribbon winding through the night. She pulled out her journal, a leather-bound book she'd started after the trial, and penned her thoughts. "Today I met the woman who came before me. Together we buried the ghosts of Robert. Daniel remains behind bars, but I'm free. At 68, life isn't ending, it's unfolding. I've discovered Alina, artist, teacher, survivor. And for the first time, that's enough." Months later, on a sunny spring day, Alina hosted a gathering in her condo. Carla and the kids were there, along with her pottery students, Laura, and even Vivian, who had driven up from California. Laughter filled the air as they shared a potluck meal, toasting to new beginnings. Sophie presented Alina with a handmade card. "To Grandma, the bravest hero ever." As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Alina felt a profound peace. The shadows of her past had faded, replaced by the warmth of chosen family and self-found strength. She had broken the cycle, not just for herself, but for those who followed. And in that, she found her true inheritance, resilience. Echoes of renewal. Margaret Hayes had spent her life as the silent architect of other people's happiness, building walls of self-sacrifice around her own dreams. At 70, she gazed out over the bustling streets of San Francisco from her modest apartment balcony, reflecting on the decades lost to roles she never chose. Loyal wife to Victor, indulgent mother to Nathan, and unwitting financier to their whims. Victor, a domineering real estate developer with a penchant for control, had died 6 years earlier from complications of diabetes, leaving behind a legacy of emotional scars and financial ruins. Nathan, their 45-year-old son, had inherited his father's cunning, turning what began as assistance with investments into a systematic drain on Margaret's savings. It started subtly after Victor's passing. Nathan, struggling with his own failing tech startup, convinced her to let him handle her portfolio. "Mom, you're not tech-savvy like me," he'd insist, his charm masking the manipulation. Soon, unauthorized withdrawals appeared, loans in her name funded his ventures, and her retirement fund dwindled to nothing. When she questioned him, he'd dismiss her. "It's the market, Mom. Don't worry your head about it." Her daughter-in-law, Rebecca, noticed the strain and urged Margaret to seek help, but Nathan's explosive temper isolated them all. Rebecca eventually fled with their children, Olivia, 9, and Ethan, 7, to a quiet suburb in Oregon, leaving Margaret in a fog of loneliness in their old family home in the Bay Area. The turning point arrived on a foggy March morning in 2023. While sorting through Victor's old files in the attic, Margaret uncovered evidence of Nathan's fraud. Falsified signatures on investment documents, emails detailing transfers to his accounts. Her hands shook as she photographed everything and contacted her longtime neighbor, Detective Karen Ruiz, a specialist in white-collar crimes. Karen, with her no-frills efficiency, pieced together the puzzle. "This is elder abuse, Margaret. Financial exploitation at its core. We can prosecute." The case built quietly. Investigators revealed Nathan had siphoned over $400,000, using Margaret's identity for high-risk trades that lined his pockets while bankrupting her. The arrest came during a routine board meeting at his startup. Nathan was led away in handcuffs, his face a mask of disbelief. The trial gripped local news. "Tech entrepreneur bilks elderly mother." Margaret took the stand, her voice quivering at first but gaining resolve. "I gave him everything: love, support, money. He took my trust and twisted it into chains." Nathan received a 10-year sentence, the judge emphasizing the betrayal of familial bonds. Margaret sold the house to settle debts, relocating to a sunny one-bedroom in San Francisco's vibrant Mission District. Here, amid street art and taquerias, she began rebuilding, enrolling in online finance courses, joining a senior yoga group, and volunteering at a local community garden. Yet peace was fleeting. 8 months post-sentencing, threats emerged, harassing calls at odd hours. "You ruined him, now pay." Her mailbox stuffed with ominous notes. A vandalized front door with "traitor" scrawled in red paint. Panicked, Margaret reached out to Karen. "Nathan's orchestrating this from prison," Karen confirmed. "He's got contacts, disgruntled ex-employees willing to do dirty work for a cut of future profits." The sting operation was straightforward but nerve-wracking. Margaret maintained her daily walks to the nearby Dolars Park and evening book club meetings, while undercover agents shadowed her. For 4 days, paranoia gripped her, every passerby a potential assailant. On the 5th afternoon, as she tended her window herb garden, she spotted a lanky man across the street, staring intently at her building. Their gazes met. He averted his eyes too quickly. She slipped inside and alerted the officer posing as a delivery driver in her lobby. "He's here," she whispered. The man watched for 45 minutes before crossing toward the entrance. The building's concierge, another agent, admitted him. Margaret sat rigidly in her armchair, facing the door as the officer hid in the kitchen. The buzzer sounded. She opened the door to a plain-faced stranger, the type who vanished in crowds. "Miss Hayes, message from your son." Before he could advance, agents swarmed from the hallway, pinning him down. He yielded without a fight, exhaling in resignation. In custody, he spilled. Nathan had paid $6,000 via a smuggled phone to deliver a lesson, trash the apartment, issue threats, inflict non-lethal injuries to instill lasting fear. Nothing deadly, just enough to break her spirit. Karen delivered the update that night. "Conspiracy charges stick. This buries any parole hopes for years." Empowered, Margaret visited Nathan in prison a fortnight later. The facility's sterile visiting room amplified the divide. Nathan, shackled and sallow, feigned surprise. "Mom, you came." "To close the chapter," she said firmly through the glass. "Your goon confessed. More time for you, but I'm here to say I'm moving forward without your shadow." He chuckled darkly. "Forward at 70. You're alone, Mom. Pathetic." Free, she corrected, smiling faintly. I've rediscovered Margaret, the woman who paints watercolors, gardens, and laughs without apology. You and Victor defined me once. No more. Nathan slammed the barrier, fury flashing. I'll be out someday, remember that. If that day comes, I'll be ready. She rose. Goodbye, Nathan. Exiting into the golden California sun, Margaret felt unburdened, the coastal breeze carrying away years of weight. Rebecca waited outside, having reconciled post-trial. Feel better. Reborn, Margaret replied, embracing her. 2 years passed in a whirlwind of growth. Margaret's watercolor hobby evolved into a thriving Etsy shop, her pieces, vibrant cityscapes and floral abstracts, selling to collectors nationwide. She mentored aspiring artists at the community center, a circle of fellow seniors sharing tales of reinvention. Rebecca and the kids visited often. Olivia adored sketching with Grandma, while Ethan built fairy houses in the park. Rebecca, now a school counselor, contributed to Margaret's budding support network. Updates on Nathan came sporadically from Karen, now a dear friend over monthly brunches. He'd adapted poorly at first, but enrolled in therapy, his appeals failing. Whispers suggested introspection, though Margaret remained wary. One breezy Saturday in April 2025, returning from an art fair with canvases in tow, Margaret found a woman waiting at her building's stoop. Mid-50s, with salt and pepper hair and a poised demeanor, she looked familiar yet distant. Margaret Hayes, she inquired. Yes, and you are. Lorraine Baxter, I was Victor's first wife. The revelation stunned. Victor had painted Lorraine as erratic and materialistic, a brief chapter dismissed. Now irony bloomed. Please come up. Margaret invited. Over herbal tea in the sunlit living room, Lorraine unfolded her past. The articles about Nathan's fraud echoed my life with Victor. Control, isolation, drained accounts. When I divorced him, he left me destitute, then found you. Seeing your story in abuse survivor forums inspired me to reach out for closure. Margaret listened, parallels resonating. Victor sowed the seeds, Nathan harvested them. We were both victims of the same playbook. By evening's end, they exchanged numbers, vowing connection. Alone on her balcony, Margaret journaled. Met the echo of my pain today. Victor and Nathan gone, but their lessons endure. I'm healing, one brushstroke at a time. The words poured forth effortlessly in her journal, a ritual born of therapy. At 70, Margaret mused on lost years, devoted spouse, doting parent, endless giver. Now she embraced just Margaret, resilient, bold, capable. The stolen funds, irretrievable. The stifling marriage, unchangeable. But her remaining time, hers alone, fear-free. The following day, an email from Lorraine proposed a support circle. Margaret leaped in. Their inaugural gathering at a seaside cafe drew 6 women, tales of domination by partners, siblings, offspring spilling forth. Rebecca, tagging along, suggested, formalize it, a nonprofit to empower others. Thus, Phoenix Rising was born months later, aiding women escaping financial and emotional bondage. Margaret designed the logo, a fiery phoenix in watercolor hues. Their debut symposium drew 60 attendees. On stage, nerves fluttered, but her voice steadied. I'm Margaret Hayes, 70. For decades, my husband and son puppeteered my life, pilfering my savings until I said enough. It's never too late to reclaim your power, to redefine yourself beyond others' expectations. Applause thundered. 3 years post-escape, a letter arrived from Nathan, script measured. Margaret, therapy's unveiling patterns mirroring Dad's tactics. No excuses, just recognition. You were right to hold me accountable. Saw your nonprofit in the news. You shine. Proud, oddly. Emotions swirled. Skepticism, sorrow, faint hope. In therapy, she pondered. What if change is real, yet boundaries remain? She replied succinctly, Nathan, acknowledging your reflection is a start. Trust rebuilds slowly. My focus is Phoenix Rising, purpose found. Wish you genuine growth. Perhaps dialogue someday as equals, Margaret. No swift reply came, suiting her. Life surged. Phoenix Rising expanded with a mission district office, offering literacy workshops Margaret led, drawing from her hard-won knowledge. Rebecca collaborated, sharing her recovery. Weekends brimmed with Olivia and Ethan, fishing at the wharf, painting sessions where Olivia queried, "Grandma, are you happy now?" "Immensely," Margaret affirmed. Whispers of resilience. Space from loved ones. Patricia Langford had always been the invisible
like your quiet reading
nooks
world
amid
together.
playtime, sacrificing her
In
own
July
aspirations for the sake of
2025,
harmony.
Karen
called. At 71, Nathan's moving
she
to a
sat in her
halfway
quaint
house,
Boston apartment,
good conduct,
overlooking the
programs
Charles
completed,
River,
pondering
day
a
work in
lifetime
community
molded by
service.
others. First as
Unease
Harold's
stirred.
dutiful wife,
Would old threats
then as
resurface?
Gregory's ever-forgiving
Rebecca
mother.
reassured.
Precautions,
Harold,
yes,
a stern
but he's
banker with an
reformed
iron
or
grip
so
on their
reports
finances
and her spirit.
Nathan's
Had succumbed
next
to a
letter was
stroke
7
detached.
years prior.
Margaret informing
Gregory,
you directly,
their
halfway
47-year-old
house
son,
day
had
job
absorbed
in his
urban
father's
gardening,
domineering ways.
no contact
evolving
intended,
family
respecting
support
space,
into a
corresponding
calculated
with
scheme
Rebecca
that
about
stripped
kids,
Patricia of her
supervised
security
letters
and
only.
self-worth.
The
It
omission of
unfolded
mom
gradually
note after Harold's
its signaled
death.
shift.
Gregory,
Margaret
entangled
shared
with
with
her
her crumbling
group,
real
drawing
estate
strength
venture,
from collective
persuaded her
wisdom.
to entrust him with her
By
inheritance
autumn,
and
Phoenix
widow's
Rising
pension.
hosted retreats.
Mom, numbers
Margaret
aren't your strength,
nationwide,
he'd say smoothly.
At
His
71,
eyes
she
evading
traveled to a
hers.
New York
Before
conference,
long, accounts were
inspiring
overdrawn,
hundreds.
mysterious
Returning
debts
home,
surfaced,
she found
and
a
her credit was
package.
ruined.
Nathan's first
Confrontations
supervised
led to
letter to the
deflection.
grandkids.
"You're
vetted by
overreacting,
Rebecca.
it's just stress from
Tell them
Dad's
I miss
passing."
building forts. His
It
wife,
read simply.
Nadine, spotted the red
Margaret
flags
didn't
and
interfere,
pleaded with Patricia
trusting
to
Rebecca's
act.
judgment.
But Gregory's
Her days
volatility
filled with
fractured
art,
their family.
advocacy, family,
Nadine fled
Olivia's
with their
budding
children,
talent,
Ethan's
Caleb,
endless
11, and
curiosity.
Isla, 9,
Evenings,
to a
she
serene
painted
town in
sunsets,
Vermont,
journaling
leaving
triumphs.
Patricia isolated in their
One
echoing
crisp
colonial
November
home
evening in
Beacon
2025,
Hill.
overlooking the Golden
struck
Gate
on a
Bridge
blizzardly
aglow,
October evening
Margaret
in
reflected.
2022.
Victor's
Rifling
ghost
through Gregory's
faded.
forgotten
Nathan's
briefcase
path
during a tense
diverged.
visit,
She had
Patricia
shattered
unearthed
the cycle,
damning
forging
evidence,
bonds with
forged
Lorraine,
power of
Rebecca,
attorney
her
forms,
mentees.
emails confirming
Phoenix
siphoned
Rising
funds
thrived,
exceeding
a testament to
$350,000.
Her
In a
breath
quiet
caught as she
moment,
documented
Olivia
it all on her
asked,
phone.
"What's your
That
secret,
night,
Grandma?"
she confided in her childhood
Believing
acquaintance,
it's never
Sergeant
too late,
Marcus Ellis,
Margaret
a
whispered,
fraud
hugging
detective
her,
with the Boston
"For anything."
PD.
Marcus,
And so,
gruff
Margaret
yet
Hayes
compassionate,
lived,
not
not
as
as
echo,
echo,
but as symphony.
This is
her story a
systematic
beacon
theft,
for the
Pat.
weary,
Elder
proving strength
exploitation
blooms
will nail
eternal
him.
12 fours. The probe proceeded covertly. Evidence mounted. Gregory had exploited Patricia's identity for risky loans, even nomming himself beneficiary on policies hinting at darker motives. The betrayal stung like frostbite, her flesh and blood reducing her to a ledger entry. Arrested at an investor meeting, Gregory's composure shattered. The trial dominated local headlines. "Son defrauds grieving mother." Patricia testified, her resolve hardening. "I nurtured him with love, he repaid with greed." Convicted, Gregory drew a 9-year term, the judge decrying the familial deceit. Patricia liquidated the house to repay debts, settling in a cozy riverside flat in Boston's Back Bay, a canvas for renewal amid historic charm and bustling cafes. Tranquility proved illusory. 10 months later, harassments escalated. Cryptic voicemails slashed mailbox, a rock through her window etched with betrayer. Alarmed, Patricia alerted Marcus. "Gregory's puppeteering from lockup," he affirmed. "Prison grapevines, old partners eager for payback." The trap was set. Patricia feigned normalcy, riverfront strolls, knitting circle gatherings under surveillance. 6 days of hypervigilance ensued, every shadow suspect. On the 7th morning, knitting on her balcony, she glimpsed a stocky figure loitering by the esplanade, eyes fixed upward. A fleeting glance confirmed suspicion. She signaled the agent posing as a neighbor. "It's him." He observed for 40 minutes before advancing. The doorman agent granted entry. Patricia perched on her settee, heart racing as the officer concealed nearby. The bell chimed. She opened to an average Joe, blending seamlessly. "Mrs. Langford, delivery from Gregory." Agents pounced from corridors, subduing him swiftly. He capitulated, weary. Confession followed. Gregory offered $8,000 for intimidation, wreak havoc, verbal barbs, bruises to erode safety. "Not lethal, just lingering terror." Marcus updated her. "Adds assault conspiracy, paroles a pipe dream." Fortified, Patricia confronted Gregory in prison 2 weeks on. The grim visiting area underscored their rift. Gregory, diminished and ashen, blinked in astonishment. "Mom!" "Why?" "To sever ties," she stated evenly. "Your proxy failed, extended sentence, but I'm declaring independence from you." He scoffed weakly. "Independence at 71, you're isolated, Mom, useless." "Empowered," she retorted, a true smile emerging. I'm Patricia, now knitter, walker, dreamer unbound. Harold and you scripted me, no longer. Gregory struck the divider, venom surfacing. This ain't finished. Freedom awaits me. Perhaps I'll be fortified. She departed. Farewell, Gregory. Stepping into autumn's crisp embrace, leaves swirling like liberated spirits, Patricia exhaled deeply. Nadine awaited, bridges mended post-trial. Liberating. Transformative, Patricia affirmed, clasping her. 3 years blurred in Boston's seasonal symphony. Patricia's knitting passion birthed a boutique online store, her scarves and sweaters, infused with Celtic motifs, gaining a loyal following. She instructed classes at a local yarn shop, bonding with peers over shared reinventions. Nadine and the kids visited bi-monthly. Caleb relished river kayaking with Grandma. Isla crafted yarn animals. Nadine, thriving as a librarian, bolstered Patricia's emerging advocacy. Gregory's updates filtered via Marcus, now a brunch companion. Transferred for misconduct, appeals rebuffed, hints of remorse surfaced. One foggy Saturday in May 2025, post-farmer's market, Patricia encountered a woman at her building's entry. Late 50s, poised with auburn gray locks, she radiated quiet strength. Patricia Langford. Yes. I'm Dollars Kane, Harold's first wife. Shock rippled. Harold had vilified Dollars as unhinged and avaricious, a dismissed footnote. Irony dawned. Join me upstairs. Over chamomile in the sun-dappled den, Dollars revealed. News of Gregory's scams mirrored my ordeal with Harold, isolation, fiscal domination. Divorcing left me penniless. He pivoted to you. Survivor networks led me here for mutual healing. Patricia empathized, echoes resounding. Harold planted the weeds, Gregory tended them. Cycles perpetuate unless shattered. Parting, they pledged contact. Balcony-bound, Patricia journaled. Encountered my predecessor's echo. Harold and Gregory exorcised. Scars mend, stitch by stitch. Journaling flowed. At 71, reflections on yielded years, dutiful consort, indulgent parent, perpetual yield. Now Patricia emerged tenacious, audacious, adept. Pilfered wealth, lost. Oppressive union, irrevocable, remaining span, sovereign unbound. Dollars' email proposed a solidarity circle. Patricia embraced it. Debut at a riverside bistro, 7 women, narratives of subjugation by kin. Nadine, accompanying, urged, institutionalize, nonprofit for empowerment. Renewal Haven launched swiftly, aiding fiscal emotional abuse survivors. Patricia knit the emblem, a rising loom. Inaugural summit drew 70. On stage, jitters yielded to vigor. Patricia Langford, 71. Decades puppeteered by spouse and offspring, culminating in a $350. Zero ultimatum. No more. Autonomy beckons eternally. Ovation roared. 4 years post-flight, Gregory's missive arrived, penmanship tempered. Patricia, therapy unveils replicas of Dad's machinations. No alibis, accountability, rightly confronted. Spotted your renewal in press. Radiant. Turmoil stirred, distrust, lament, glimmering optimism. Therapy probed. Authentic shift, boundaries persist. Her retort. Gregory, effort noted. Faith fractured mends tediously. Renewal Haven anchors me, fulfillment unearthed. Pursue verity, dialogue conceivable as peers. Patricia. Silence ensued, apt. Life surged. Renewal expanded. Downtown hub workshops Patricia spearheaded, her acumen hard-earned. Nadine partnered, recounting resilience. Weekends. Caleb's stargazing, Isla's knitting. In August 2025, Marcus phoned. Gregory to halfway, exemplary, programs aced. Day labor in conservation. Apprehension loomed. Relapse, Nadine soothed. Vigilance but reform whispers. Gregory's epistle, formal. Patricia notifying personally, halfway imminent. Park restoration days, curfew eves, no intrusion, boundaries honored. Corresponding Nadine Ray, kids overseen missives. Mom, absent, denoting evolution. Patricia conferred with Circle, fortitude gleaned. By winter, Renewal hosted intensives, Patricia keynoting afar. At 72, she keynoted in Chicago, galvanizing multitudes. Homeward a parcel, Gregory's vetted kid letter Nadine approved. Inquire their passions, it beseeched. Patricia abstained, deferring to Nadine. Days brimmed, craft, crusade, kin, Caleb's queries, Isla's zeal. Evenings, knitting sunsets, chronicling victories. One snowy December eve 2025, river frozen ethereal, Patricia contemplated. Harold's specter dimmed, Gregory's trajectory forked. She dismantled the loop, forging alliances with dolers, Nadine mentees. Renewal flourished, agony alchemized to aid. In solitude, Caleb inquired. Grandma's secret. Perpetual recommencement, Patricia murmured, embracing. For all. Thus, Patricia Langford endured. Not whisper, but roar, her saga illuminating the shadowed, affirming fortitude perennial 13s.